Okay, hey team. Welcome in, welcome back. My new initiative is I'm going to try and post a lot, and if anybody wants to support me by liking, subscribing, that's great. If anybody wants to help me financially, because I kind of soft quit my job, so I'm here burning off nervous energy. And if I can get some money from it, I will. I'll bug you about that at the end. Until then, let's talk about the quarter moon that we just had, okay? I keep wanting to call it the Aries moon, but that's not what it was. We're gonna talk about the Cancer three-quarter moon. Okay, so here is a chart of the moment right now. Oh, hello, Saturn. Hope that's not foreshadowing anything. And that's just for reference. Let's look at the moon. I want to look at the last quarter moon that we just had, and I want to look at the chart for that moon. Okay, you may see backgrounds of my cats come through behind us, but I am just going to copy the chart of the full moon down, and then we'll be able to rotate it around. And then, or the quarter moon, and then we'll get into it. So we have how do I want to do this? Okay, well, it would be really decent if when you clicked on the chart for the third quarter moon, it showed you the chart for the third quarter moon and not just a chart for some other time in that day. But I can do it, that's fine. We did it with whiteboard, so that's amazing. So I'm just scrolling back and forth until the degree of the moon matches the degree of the sun, and I am looking here at these two to see that they match up, but you can also look right here. If these numbers are too small sometimes, I'll look on this side as well. So we want to go back a little bit more, and then we'll go forward a minute. My marker's drying out. Forward a minute. Okay, now this was the third quarter moon. Okay, we'll get rid of this. So the idea I'm having is that I will like draw out the house numbers with the ascendant for like whatever's going on for this moon. And then we'll just kind of cycle through for house themes at the end about like who might be experiencing what in this area. So let's put the moon at the top of the chart, or as the like key part of the chart. So this is Cancer, and then we also have here, let's make him bright, Jupiter at 2349, and then in Leo nothing, and then in Virgo, Leo nothing, Virgo is a 311 fortune, 16-ish south node, I believe that's the mean node, true node's right around there, and a 2950 Venus. Libra has a 216. I don't really know what vertex is or does. It's like the point where fate comes in. I've heard it described. But I don't know what that means. I write it down every time though. Okay. And then we've got Scorpio. I don't use Lilith at all, but I wrote it down for you, for y'all. And then we have a 311 Sag AC, which is what was going on locally for me. Like at the moment of the full moon, these were the angle points, which won't really matter for like where else you are, because we're gonna go like where is this happening in whoever's houses. I don't know if that sentence made sense, but I don't care. That's the wrong color. That's okay. What am I trying to do now? Sag, Capricorn, Aquarius has Pluto, who is essentially stationing at this point. Pluto moves so slowly that like his station point today, on the day I'm recording this, October 13th, today's October 14th. Redo. Today, Pluto is stationed direct, and it was at the same minute, or degree and minute. And so the whole time that Pluto's going to be at 122, he's stationing, right? Like, so what if he's facing one way or the other? Like, he's stationed. He's just parked somewhere. So we'll write down that he was stationing. And then up in Pisces, we've got North Node at about 16, and Saturn 2650. And then there's Aries, which has Neptune, and the 2-degree angle, and Chiron right over here, 2503. Nobody in Taurus. And then Uranus up in Gemini. Okay, so this is the basis of the third quarter moon that we just had. So I'm going to go over how I've dealt with the moon in a few different layers. New moon, first quarter, if you're in the southern hemisphere, that's going to be flipped. Full moon, third quarter. And so here we're like wrapping up what we released and what was illuminated here, which we started to build here, which was seeded here at the new moon. Now, this third quarter moon is in Cancer. The full moon was in Aries. The first quarter moon and the new moon were like, this was eclipse season, right? So the way I work with eclipse season is I did not set any kind of intentions at the new moon. And so what this full moon for me is releasing, instead of like letting go of what we started here, it's kind of releasing all the tension and all the energy and all the buildup that happened over eclipse season. So this cardinal full moon, like new Aries with the new, kind of released all of that, and we learned what we learned and we saw what we saw, but now we're in a new season. And so it's not even like eclipse season ends so much that like a new cycle starts, because the Aries moon is like, it's me, I'm fresh, like look at me now. And it's too far from the nodes to have anything to do with eclipses. And so the third quarter moon, which would usually be wrapping up this whole entire month-long cycle and getting ready for like a new set of intentions, is now instead dealing with like all this energy that just got shoved at it because of the eclipses. And so it's maybe dealing with wrapping up like a time period that's much longer than we're used to, and filled with a lot more stuff, but maybe we don't even know what we're getting rid of. I feel like I've done this how to work with the moons like video and templates so many times over the past couple years that I don't even know what I'm talking about right now. And so because also this is coming off of eclipse season and it's kind of vague and a mess, I'm just going to skip into what I actually want to talk about, which is using a bigger cycle than monthly. But there's a cycle that exists that's called the lunar gestation families, which I learned from Astrology by Celeste and also from Frank Clifford School of Astrology, London School of Astrology, which is where I got this PDF from. I attended a lecture, and I think this lecture was through, you know, those emails you get where it's like, sign up for 4 days of amazing speakers and you can only watch every day unless you pay, and then you can watch anytime. And it's all different types of speakers and all different types of modalities. This is how I got, it was one of those lectures. So if you have the patience for all the emails they send you, Sometimes those can be good. So anyway, we're going to look at this and then we'll talk about it. So this was a last quarter moon, and it was in October of 2025. 2025, October 13th at 2039 Cancer. And so we can look back at the last full moon, which was January of 2025 at within 3 degrees at 23 Cancer. And then 9 months before that, we can look at the first quarter moon that happened right here as well, within 3 degrees at 26 Cancer. And that happened 9 months before in April of 2024. And then 9 months before that, when did this whole cycle begin? At about 20 again, so within 3 degrees of this spot. And this new moon within 4 or 5 degrees of this third quarter moon, right? So they're all in the same zone. This new moon at 2456 Cancer, July 2023. So that's the basic premise of the lunar gestation families. It's taking the normal cycle, new moon, quarter moon, full moon, third quarter moon, and instead of looking at it monthly, we're going to look at it in 9-month phases. So every 9 months, we're going to have one of the quarter phases of a lunation at around the same little tight area in the zodiac. So we can write these ones down. We had the new moon. When was this? July 17, 2023. And we'll write down. And we had the quarter. Where am I? Sorry for everybody that rightfully thinks that I'm doing this backwards. Oh well. 2618. And the full moon. And the third quarter, which just happened. Okay. So now there's a couple different ways we can look at this information here. Let me just make sure I'm still on. We can just look at it as it is. Did we start some kind of cycle around July of 2023 and then notice that we started to have to put some energy into it and really tend to it or give it some maintenance, really work at it starting around April, and then that kind of like working at it would have lasted for about 9 months, April 2024. And then in January of this year, what did we like realize? What was illuminated? What became clear? What did we see that we were able to like harvest or reap from this whole experience that we started July of 2023, and get some like understanding about it and release any expectations we had about what began here and kind of appreciate where it is, where we were in January 2025. And then we would have been in that kind of like, oh, this is what it is, illumination, full moon period for 9 months. And now in October of 2025, we have started the third quarter lunar phase for this little, mid to late, just 20 degrees, 20 to 30 degrees of Cancer. So like the third decan of Cancer. Now for the next 9 months, we're going to be in this disillusionment kind of dissolving, tearing down. It was what it was and it was great, or it wasn't. And now we're going to make room for what's going to come next, regardless of what this was. Regardless of what we've realized and been sitting in the realization of, now it's time once again to act. And instead of building up to this thing that we started July 2023, we are now building down from this thing that was realized in January of 2025 getting ready for a new cycle that is going to begin somewhere in Cancer, maybe in this area, July of 2026, I would think. Let's see what other Cancers we have. We have Cancer, and then the next one was 2024 at 14. And the one that began this year was a really early degree. And so, yeah, 2026, I believe, will begin a new Cancer 3 third decan Cancer lunation cycle. So we can look at it just like that. What is the progression of, what we've been building in this part of our chart, in the Cancer part of our chart, particularly the Cancer 3, the third decan of Cancer, and can we see a pattern? The other way to look at that is to think, okay, every 3 years, basically, do I go through a whole cycle that begins roughly with the new moons every 3 years, in a sign. So you can think between July of 2023, 2020, 2017, 2014, 2011, right? 2008. Do you notice a kind of broad 3-year cyclical initiative? All right, it is what it is. Getting rid of it for a new initiative that kind of follows these years, right? And then similarly, we would be in this position that we're in now, coming down off of that full moon high that we've been in for about 9 months. Maybe getting itchy the past couple months of like, okay, that's over now. What's next? And now we're starting to make room for what's next. So similarly, we could get, in October 2022, 2019, 2016, whatever third quarter lunar phase translates to in your experience in your life. Do you notice that, yeah, about every 3 years I'm in that kind of vibe, especially when we narrow it down to Cancer topics and whatever house topics Cancer is for you in your chart, as well as adding in ideas about the moon, because moon is always everywhere, but also moon is going to be somewhere specific in your chart, not just ruling Cancer, but also somewhere else, possibly. I guess 1 in 12 of us have a Cancer moon. I don't know if that's the equal distribution. I'm assuming it's 1 in 12. Yeah. This video is kind of messy because I don't even know, I thought there was 3 separate things I talked about with the moon, and I straight up don't know anymore what it would be. I would have to find, I deleted the old videos I didn't post. I would have to find the old paper that I did it on and reverse engineer. I'm gonna assume it doesn't matter enough, and that if I keep coming back for different lunar phases to do this, that it'll come up at some point. I've been avoiding coming on and doing this type of thing because I am not very committed, and to reliably show up every week, on time, and not be 5 days late and ready for the next moon phase, was intimidating. And so the third quarter moon is actually the most auspicious time for me to do it, because the moon is bright and she's shedding and sharing and letting go of all that light that she accumulated. And those are themes of the disseminating and the waxing moon. So the waning moon, or sorry, the waxing moon when she's growing, she's gathering all the light, all the resources, all the information, all the support, and then she shines in the full moon. And then the waning, disseminating moon where she's losing light, she's losing form, she's losing shape, she's losing brightness. We can think of it as like a sharing, as a sending out into the world. In the lunar practice that I started with my astrological studies, the full moon is for like kind of releasing the negativity, and the third quarter moon is for releasing the positivity. So if you have the resources and the energy to share by the time you get here, share. We're not always in the space for, generous sharing. Here at the full moon, it can be a tense time. So anyway, the numbers are great, but let's narrow it down to houses. Cancer risings, this is going to be your first house, right? And then for Gemini risings, it's the second. Right? If you were an Aries rising, this would be your fourth house, right? Okay, okay. Oh, we're going backwards. Oh my goodness. All right. The reason you have to use your rising sign for horoscopes is because the areas of life were like relationships, or work, or money, or your parents, or death, or illness, or travel, or learning, or gossip. Like it's all going to come from a certain house number. That's what tells us what to talk about. And so you can go from any point. You can go from your sun, you can go from your Venus, and then it's like those themes particular to that part of you. So your rising sign is you. It's all of you. It's going to be like the themes are going to be present. You can't avoid it. If you want to go from your sun sign, then you have to be really particular about these themes that you're using specific to the solar parts of you, specific to your sun and how your sun wants to act, specific to the solar people or the people in your life that sun represents, instead of you and all of you and kind of your life more generally and more broadly with the rising sign. You can read every sign of a horoscope and just apply it to that house, keeping a grain of salt, like keeping in mind that what you're listening to or what you're reading for the horoscope for that particular spot is you got to narrow it down to that particular spot. And so it's not going to apply broadly to your whole life, but just to either that house if it's empty or the planets that are in it instead of your rising sign. I hope that made sense. But now I'm going to put in the keywords or a few keywords for each house number, and that will help us figure out what's going on with the third quarter moon, not only for the next week as we shed what is going on locally in the moment now and get ready for the next new moon, which is going to be in late Libra, right? The sun is here in Libra, moon is at 20, moon's going to move in 1 week, sun's going to move about 7 degrees, about a degree a day. So in the week it takes moon to get here, sun will be at about 27, maybe 28 degrees of Libra. So we're going to have a new moon still in Libra. Sun doesn't move to Scorpio yet. So not only are we getting ready for that in the next week, or less than that because the new moon was before now, but in this next 9 months, as we prepare for a whole entire new Cancer cycle next summer with the gestation cycles, what can we work on locally over the next week, and then also what can we expand and think more broadly over the next 9 months and even in 3-year increments. Okay, so the first health, the first house is about self. The first is about self, body, vitality, and then self is like appearance, character, personality, who you are, how you show up. 9 is travel, learning and teaching, foreign stuff, and we'll say faith. And the 5th house is joy, games, kids, and sex. The 11th house is network, goals or aspirations, yeah, we'll go friends. It's like between 11 and 3. Third house is like friends that you meet really locally in your neighborhood, see them every day, see them all the time. You meet them because of where you are. The 11th house is friends that you meet because of what you do. Like you choose to go out into the world and join this organization or work this job or whatever it is, and then you meet these people that share like a aspiration or a goal or an ideal or a hobby or something with you up in the 11. You might get hobby friends in the 5th as well, or like teammates, people that you play sports with. Okay, so 11, 7 is relations, anything one-on-one, including like if you're in small claims court, it's the person across from you. If you are in any kind of client or counseling work as either person, that's going to be there. So if you do consulting, or like if you are the astrologer, that's 7th house. If you see people one-on-one, it's 7th house. And then 3rd house is friends, siblings. I'm going to delete friends. Siblings. I'm going to put neighbors, siblings, communication. 12th house is isolation, chronic health, mental health, and it's the place of self undoing. It can also be places of isolation like hospitals, prisons, confinement, that kind of thing. 8th house is inheritance, both genetic and financial, debt, death, and transformation. And the 4th is private life, childhood, home. What color do we have left? 2nd house is money, resources, support. 10th house is public life, career, leadership. And 6th house is, well, I can't write house, work, pets, health, and I'll put toil. Okay, so that is the basics. Let's go back to a full screen here. Alright. So here's my basics. Alright. So Cancer risings are dealing with this shedding, this taking down, this taking apart, this getting ready for a newness in their sense of self. Cancers are ready for a new chapter. And then we can look specifically at like where are the heavy hitters, or are there any big planetary things we care about that are really pertinent. And so we could say that we're having Saturn up here in Pisces, which is 4 Cancer risings up in the ninth house here. Um, and so we're maybe hitting a limit with belief, right? And those are causing a bit of a purge to get ready for a new understanding of belief, right? That's how you can tie in the planets because once you know what they are, and then we'll go on. So for Gemini risings, you've got this Cancer third quarter moon happening in your second house, and so you're maybe getting rid of or starting to be aware of some changes needing to happen. It's an old style needing to make way for a new style that has to do with your money, your resources, how you value yourself, how you value the talents you have, how you value your money. An old cycle is ending and we're moving into a new one. For Taurus risings, this Cancer third quarter moon is happening in your third house of siblings, neighbors, regular daily life, the stuff you do normally. It doesn't even have to be daily, but like if you do it weekly, if you do it monthly, if it's just kind of the normal for you, particularly having to leave the house, running your errands, seeing your neighbors, running the kids to school, you going to school, we're ready for a shed in how we show up and what we, interrelationally allow between Cancer and Libra, what we allow emotionally to show up in our daily local life that we do when we're running around. For Aries risings, this is your fourth house being impacted, and we're getting ready to let go of maybe an old story about how we were nurtured in our childhood or an old method of nurturing self or children in the house that you realize is outdated. And before you feel the pressure to make that change in a week, expand those changes that you're wanting to see into the next 9 months. How can you use the dates that are already here to support that this is a longer cycle and you've got time to work through it, like with the thoroughness and the depth that you need to interrelationally and emotionally? Because for Aries risings, this lunar aspect is happening in the fourth house, and the light for that is coming from your seventh house. And so like you're gonna have to have one-on-ones, you're gonna have to talk to people in your home or about your childhood, or you're talking to the kids about the changes that need to happen, about how it impacted you emotionally, and how you would like to move on, not only a week from now but 9 months from now. What could support you in your home life, and can you advocate for yourself with others for that? Pisces risings, this is happening in your fifth house of joy. If you have children, or if you're trying to have children, it might be there. Saturn, there might be limits, barriers, health changes that need to happen in the place of joy to better experience joy, or to being able to have joy for the long term, like to give some longevity to your joy instead of really quick, short lived, instant gratification isn't going to serve you long term kind of joy. So we're looking at what is ready to go. Maybe you had a passion project or something you really wanted that you began going after in the summer of 2023, and you got it or you didn't. Maybe the goals have shifted and now you can just start to let go of those goals and the mindset of who you were when you thought that chasing these things would give you joy. And now that you know that they did or they didn't, or that you don't care anymore, you can begin to dismantle, those inner beliefs and those goalposts that you had, to make room for like a brand new type of joy that you maybe are not even like equipped to understand or predict or know that you want, right? Because Saturn's been in Pisces for a while. So Saturn's about to move kind of permanently by February out of your first house and kind of get off of you. And that might help with this trine from Cancer. That might help with the flow. So we're going to use this energy to let go of what doesn't feel so good, or what you know isn't, like, it feels good now, but is it worth it? Hmm? Now we know, right? Saturn has exaltation in Libra as well, which again is where the light for this is coming from. So, yeah, is it worth it? Could be a good question to be asking over the next week if you're doing kind of micro intentions, if you're busy in your day-to-day like that, or more broadly when you start to get on yourself about your joy practices, your pleasure practices, or putting yourself out there to have fun. You've got time to be asking the question of what's really worth it moving forward. Aquarius risings, this is happening in your 6th house. So going through we're beginning to go through the dismantling process of what emotionally, interrelationally has not supported work, health, pets, toil, the little things you have to care for in the day to day. 3rd house is day to day, like busyness. 6th house is your private day to day stuff that you just have to do. It's like your chores, right? This is errands, this is chores. So, Aquarius 6th house, you maybe started a new regime in the summer of 2023, and now it got you what it got you, or it's time to reevaluate those goals, and kind of set new goalposts for yourself. Capricorn risings, this 3rd quarter Cancer moon is happening in your 7th house of relationships and is being lit by a Libra moon from your 10th house, of like leadership. And so you may be coming into a time where you're evaluating how you show up one on one, and if you are giving what you're getting. Again, this is like is it worth it question for yourself. Is it worth showing up and bringing what you bring as a Capricorn rising? Not only what you bring, but what you don't bring emotionally. Is that working out for you? And can you use this light coming from the 10th house? Maybe there's a leader or a parent, particularly somebody's mom, or like a matronly figure, that can help guide what you have to let go of emotionally or from childhood, like Cancer themes, in your ebb and flow, and in what you value in the give and take, what makes interpersonal relationships worth it for you. What do you need to let go of? What do you need to start dismantling to make room for a new cycle that maybe feels, this is happening in your 3rd to 4th house, that maybe feels like a bit less busy work and a bit more like a solace? Sagittarius risings, this 3rd quarter Cancer moon is happening in your 8th house of inheritance, debt, death, and transformation. So this could be, I had like a big 8th house activation once, and aka Jupiter was in my 8th house, and I went on a consumer proposal. So it wasn't like I went into debt, I got out of debt, or I took the steps to start getting out of debt. So it's not, you don't have to be scared of this house. You don't have to be too scared of this house. But we may be thinking about, those long term, what's going to happen either to my parents, what's going to happen to me, what is the legacy I'm leaving behind? Am I set up for things to go awry? Like, what's going on in the darker financial house? The things we don't really want to look at. And what is ready to be dismantled, particularly emotionally. So if you have particular, like, internal emotional childhood, again with Cancer, childhood beliefs or beliefs of your parents that you inherited about money, about support, about what you have to do to show up in a relationship in order to get the resources of the other, right? Like, do you feel like you have to trade yourself in order to get someone to share what they have with you? And is that what you're in relationships for? We may be looking at, again, interrelationally between the Libra and the Cancer aspects here, what is ready to go about what we think about death, debt, transformation, the great cycles of power, of money, of wealth that like flow through our lives and our societies and may or may not speak to any kind of like worth or value of the people involved, right? We're really balancing worth with Libra and Cancer here. So something there has to go. And it maybe doesn't have to go in the next week, but even implementing one small attitude shift, one small habit change could ripple out over the next 9 months so that you're ready for a whole new Cancer cycle in the summer of 2026. Scorpio risings, this Cancer third quarter new moon is, or third quarter new moon, this Cancer third quarter moon is happening in your ninth house of travel, learning, teaching, faith, foreign, the temple. Astrology is a few houses in here, but astrology can be one of them for the ninth house, kind of that higher learning. And again, the third quarter moon doesn't always have to mean taking something apart. It can mean a shedding, a sharing. You have all these resources and now it's just time to let them leave you. I am a Scorpio rising, and this is what's happening. Here I am. Ta-da, take it. And so now over the next 9 months, over the next week specifically, but over the next 9 months more broadly, we are beginning to shed or share or disseminate. We're past the disseminating phase and we're into the like, okay, what's left? And it needs to be taken down and it needs to be put away. And again, we've got 9 months to do this, so you don't have to go crazy. You don't have to go hard. You can cycle through it. You can ebb and flow about what we're wanting to make space for within the ninth house of our life. Foreign ideas, higher ideas, the great wide unknown, the great out there, the great why, right? What do we have to make room for in the great why for a whole new cycle that will be nutritive and balanced with the Cancer Libra themes to begin next summer? What can we begin now to set ourselves up for success next summer? Libra risings, this Cancer third quarter moon is happening in your 10th house of public life, career, leadership, motherhood, vocation, being seen. Where do you agree to go out and interface with the world? That is under review right now. You maybe started some goal or had some dream or some aspiration in the summer of 2023, and now you're beginning to see that it was realized or it wasn't, and that energy is beginning to peter out, and now it's time for something new. It's not quite time for something new, it's time now to begin to prepare for something new, right? So right now we're cleaning up the workspace. We're just doing that housekeeping so that whatever the desktop of your career and your public life by next summer is like clean and fresh and ready for whatever we're going to put there with the Cancer new moon next summer. So this may be releasing goals. It may be releasing ideas of leadership or relationships, even emotional relationships, emotional give and takes that you've had with leaders in your life, like maybe a boss. Maybe you recently took on, since summer 2023, a leadership position, and you're realizing now that it was what it was, but it's either time to move like back out of a leadership position or higher up into a greater leadership position. We're ready to move on from whatever we started and get into something new. Virgo risings, this Cancer third quarter moon is happening in your 11th house of network, goals, dreams, hopes, aspirations, and that wider friend sphere. So you may be noticing that maybe a new venture, a new friend group, or like a new goal, a new dream kind of took root for you in the summer of 2023. And now we're realizing that it's time to recalibrate or to take it down so that we can make room for a whole new goal, a whole new group of people to influence us, a whole new group of people to influence, a new interchange to have with the world that is a little less give us yourself public world and a little more share, share with joy. 11th house, the house of good spirit. So, thinking of the 11th house, house of good spirit for Virgo risings, and knowing that the Libra sun lighting this moon is coming from your second house of support, it may be time to really evaluate what relationships, what greater friends, what greater networks, and the goals and aspirations you develop in relation with those people. What of that is truly supportive and what isn't? And using the light of that support energy with the Libra sun coming from your second house of support, what is ready to just go? And it doesn't need to be a big story about it. Not everything is here forever. Lots of things are here for a season, and that's okay. But what is ready to go so that you can have a more harmonious and a more nutritive 11th house experience? And we're making room for that now. We're making room for it to begin seeding next summer, summer 2026. Leo risings. This Cancer third quarter moon is happening in your 12th house of isolation, chronic health, mental health, and self undoing. This doesn't have to be a really bad place. If you've got a lot going on in your 12th house, it can mean that you just work with these populations as well. I know somebody that's got a loaded 12th house and they're a social worker. So it may not be that you are slammed with all of these themes, but you just come into proximity, you come into interface with them in some way. So with this Cancer third quarter moon happening in your 12th house and the Libra sun powering it coming from your third house, we may be realizing that now is the time to start taking apart some of the isolation habits or the hermit habits that we rely on, that don't really serve the day to day, or we're being shed a light, the light coming from the third house, into the 12th house about what in our third house gotta go because it's affecting the mental health of the 12th house and the emotional health. Like it's having too much of an impact on the waves of emotional health in the 12th house for our Leo risings. So there might be a relationship between 12th house where the moon is and third house where the sun is. And is that? Yeah. 12 and 3 are square to each other. 12 where the moon is and 3 where the sun is, where the light is really coming from. It may not be that you're realizing that some mental health, some habits that you do just when you're in isolation to kind of like deal or like bear the day-to-day reality. Maybe some of those aren't serving you and we want to get rid of, we want to start to take some of those infrastructures down so that we can have a fresh slate and a new garden plot for those habits and those ideas and those actions next summer. Or maybe some third house stuff has to go because it's having too much of a detrimental impact on your 12th house environment, on your mental health, on the time when you're alone. It doesn't really matter who you're with in your life. At the end of the day and like throughout the day, it's just you in your head. It's just you and you in your psyche. And so if your third house Libran environment is having too much of a detrimental impact on your 12th house environment, now is the time to begin assessing, okay, what has got to go? Because I need to thrive and shine, and I need to live here. So how are we going to make that happen? Okay. That was my first horoscope, essentially. Yay! I hope that did anything for anybody. Thanks very much for joining me. I am going to talk about my little initiative here with all of the videos and eat some nachos. So, I soft quit my job because I couldn't take it anymore, and I don't have a plan, and I don't have an income, and I'm just making videos. And so, you can help me. You can help me not only pay rent and pay all my bills. I need $250 by the end of October. But if we go beyond that, I could also get groceries and weed. So anyway, your help is immeasurably appreciated. Even $2 if you appreciated this video, if you liked something I said, if you liked how I explained something, if you're happy the video is over, If you're happy I waited to the end to talk about the money, uh, anything is appreciated. Thank you so much. We'll see you again.